Hey there, I'm Laura and you are watching my non-toxic kitchen remodel, the transformation, the reveal, all the products we used. I'm glad that you're here and let's jump in. Oh my gosh, you guys, this has been a long time coming. So we started this process in February and as I'm filming it today, this is October and everything just finally got finished last week with the lighting. I'm still not done styling it. I'm not obsessed with all of my styling choices, but I also don't want to like rush into styling because I've been trying that, you guys. I've been trying it for months. I've been buying tons of stuff from Home Goods and World Market and Hobby Lobby, and I get it home and I'm just not obsessed with most of it. So it's gonna be a process and I don't want to keep you guys hanging, but I want to let you know everything that went into it in terms of it being non-toxic, from the materials and products that we chose. And first things first, we moved into this house 7 years ago. I will show you some B-roll of what the kitchen used to look like. It had a solid surface countertop that also was molded into the sink. So it was one unit. It was like a speckly brown color. I actually didn't hate it, but I really ruined the finish. One time I was ironing on top of it and I didn't use an ironing board. I just used a towel, like a thick towel underneath, and it totally took the finish off. And then we had this bright primary color blue backsplash, little 1 by 1 inch square tiles, and we were not obsessed with it, like, because from the front door the first thing that you actually see is the kitchen backsplash, and so literally everything in our house had to coordinate with this blue color that neither of us loved. But because I am so chemically sensitive, we never dreamed that we would be able to remodel our kitchen. But you know, 2020 happened and everyone started remodeling their kitchens and we thought, you know what, I think we can do it. I think we can do it safely for me. Spoiler alert, it was not a smooth sail. You guys can see what it looks like now. We love it. It's exactly what we wanted. We wanted like the all white look, which is certainly what we got. In hindsight, we'll talk about this later, but I'm not sure that I would go with the all white look again if I had to do it all over. But let's jump into the specifics. The items that we changed in our kitchen were simply countertops, backsplash, the range, and the lighting. When we moved in, all of the appliances were white and we have slowly transitioned them over the years, and the only thing left that was needed to be upgraded yet was the range. So that was actually the last thing that happened, second to lighting, and that did not come until August, and the lights just came late September. We actually had some mishaps with the lights too, where some came in. These were not our first choice, but I'm actually really happy with them. The first ones came in, both of them were damaged in the same way, and then we moved to these guys, and I'm so happy that we did. But your biggest expense in the kitchen is probably going to be your countertops. Now, I chose quartz. I really love the look of marble, and I don't want the upkeep of marble with the needing to seal it. The sealers are just not very non-toxic, a lot of them, and it's very fragile. Then the other option is granite, and same thing, granite needs to be sealed regularly as well, which is not something I was willing to do. And so quartz was really the most durable, the most variety, still super high quality, shouldn't stain. I have spilled like strawberry stuff on this so many times and it is white. It has not stained. I'm very fast to wipe it up, but it hasn't stained. And I wanted something subtle. I didn't want something with like a in-your-face veining where I could see it from my front door. So I went with this really almost like a milky white base and then a light gray veining. There is a little bit of gold veining in it as well, but you kind of got to catch the light just right to see it. Quartz is not 100% natural. It is like 90-something% natural, and then there is a little bit of a resin to get it the exact veining and colors and whatnot. Usually a installer is going to install this with silicone caulk, and this is where I ran into trouble. There's a lot of miscommunication about the caulk that was going to be used, and I ended up being allergic to the caulk that was used. And I'm not going to get into the story, but it was a nightmare. We were supposed to be out of our house for 3 days for the countertops, and I ended up having to move out of my house for 9 weeks because I was so allergic to it. And The options to change it were not great, but if you are a sensitive person, I cannot stress this high enough. You need to test your materials before they go in your house. We've used caulk a million times. I did not realize that like silicone caulk was very different than other types of caulk. And there are varieties of silicone caulk. I ended up testing several after I realized I was allergic to what was put in. The varieties I tried were all neutral cure, meaning that they off-gas a different chemical than others that are not neutral cure. There's like, I will link an article for you in the blog post of something that was very helpful for me. The caulk that ended up being the best for me, that I thought smelled the least, every single one is gonna have an odor when it's wet, and it smelled the least during those days, but then when it was dry, it went to no odor in just 3 days, and that is ChemLink Duracell. There are other options as well, so check out the blog post, but that's the one that worked for me. The upside of quartz, like I said, is that you don't need to seal it. However, because I was having such strong reactions, I did actually seal the underneath of the countertop, and I'm glad that I had asked my husband to do that because I still don't think it was causing me a reaction. But when you get your countertop, it's very dusty under there. Even if you wipe it and clean it off a lot, it still has a lot of dust. So sealing it really helps that. All right, the new counters are in and the plumbing has been reconnected. So you can see now we have a bunch of exposed drywall. We can finally get at this and start chipping that away. I think you would be very happy if you took out all your drawers and cabinet stuff like we did, because it is messy. It's not the worst thing, but you don't want to have to wash everything that you own. So we did have to like wipe out everything and actually wipe the underneath of the stone as well, because that actually had quite a bit of dust on it too. And same thing, I've got my IQ Air. This is the best one I found for construction dust. This is what solves the door dust issue when we had that a couple years ago. And again, it's on min speed, but I will definitely crank this baby back up when I'm done chatting with you. All right, now about the backsplash. The backsplash is actually my favorite part of this whole kitchen. And it was a labor of love, you guys, because we did the demo ourselves. I'm hoping we can preserve as much of the drywall as possible. The options there are, if your drywall is not good enough for tile, you have to put in new drywall, which is a no for me. I do not do well with new drywall. Or we would do a Curdy board, which would be fine. I have sample of Curdy board. It does not have an odor, but that's what we would end up doing if we cannot get this off nicely. And if that's the case, my husband and I would cut out the drywall ourselves, because we're just gonna be a lot more careful about the dust than someone who doesn't live here would be. Which I would 10 out of 10 recommend if you are a sensitive person and you have someone handy willing to help you, because most of the time, if they're not able to remove the existing backsplash easily from the drywall, they're gonna cut it out and it's gonna create tons and tons of drywall dust, which is very hard to get out of your air because the particles are so fine. So my husband actually used a very tiny hand saw and sawed it all out because it was not coming off of the drywall. And then he installed the Curdy board on the back, which is what we used as a backer board since I am sensitive to drywall. And then the tile professional cut and laid the tile. So I am obsessed with this backsplash, you guys, because again, I want it all white. Fun fact, when you're doing all white, it's really hard to get all of your whites to coordinate well between the cabinets, the countertop, the backsplash. There are a million different shades of white and they don't all look good together. So this ended up being the hardest thing to source. So like I said, we started this process early February. Our countertops were installed April 26th and our backsplash was installed the last week of June. And then the range came in August. So it was a long process, but I am just so happy with it. These have that handmade look to them, handmade texture. They are actually matte It is much harder to find a matte tile than it is to find a glossy tile. And because we have such amazing natural sunlight in this kitchen, anything glossy turned into like a disco ball at certain times of the day and would like blind me of the samples. So I'm so happy with this because in the parts that get the most sunlight, it actually looks almost like pearlescent, which is in this section that it gets that really intense sunlight and just looks kind of pearly, and I love it. We kept our cupboards the way they were because they were white when we moved in, and I love that. And then these are not original, but we changed them a couple years ago, and they are a brushed nickel. So brushed nickel is our primary metal throughout the house, and now we have brass accents. In terms of the materials for the Backsplash, first of all, when you are demoing, I highly recommend having a containment strategy. We used this Queen zip wall system, worked super well. Multiple vacuum strategies. Again, check out my blog post for all that info. And then luckily, if you're sensitive, tile work is inherently pretty non-toxic. It's mostly cement unless you're using an epoxy situation. So for tile, you're gonna need a thin set and a grout most likely. The thin set is what goes on first, and the tile actually sticks to it. If you don't know, I didn't know anything about this stuff before this. And then once the tiles are adhered for about 24 hours, you can put the grout on, and the grout is what you actually see. So we used a bright white grout with this, and I couldn't be happier. I love it. I just love it. It's my favorite part of the kitchen. Because we had the whole caulk situation before this went in, I made sure to test, even though I went into it knowing tile adhesives and grouts are not super toxic in general, I wanted to, you know, make sure nothing bad happened again. So I tested a bunch of them, and the ones that I landed on are Latacrete 252 Silver for thin set and Custom Home Polyblend Grout. So many colors. Grout really changes the look of your tile. It's wild. Lastly, in terms of the Backsplash, more often than not, your tile professional is going to want to put in that same silicone caulk where the countertop and the Backsplash meet. We asked him not to do that, and so he purposely grouted it all the way to the bottom, really tight. We could always go back and use our Duracell on there if we wanted to, but I don't want to. So when you get a new countertop, you need a new sink. So like I said, our previous sink was molded into the countertop. It was the same material, there was no breaks. And the new sink is in. I'm like super excited about this new sink. It's so big and just one drain. Be way nicer than the split sink we had before. So we went with this giant stainless steel drop-in sink. It is about 2 inches deeper than our previous sink. Our old sink had a divider in the middle, so it's only about 1 inch wider on either side than the previous sink, but without that divider, with the extra 2 inches on the side, the extra 2 inches on the bottom, it feels massive. Massive, massive, massive. Like I can hide my biggest pot in there and it's not gonna stick out. It's great. The other thing is that you have to have your sink and your faucets ready to go before they can even cut your countertop, because they cut the countertop to fit it. So we had to wait on the sink. Of course, everything is back ordered in 2020, 2021. So that also took some time. And then we had them cut a hole for my water filter, drinking water filter. And then we did get a new faucet. I actually liked our old faucet better. So this one has the option of using the handle, or it has the option of using motion. However, our last one, the motion detector was under here, which made so much more sense because any drips from your hands when you're turning it off went into the sink. But here, to use the motion sensor, it goes all over. We actually normally tape that off with painter's tape and use the handle, and I just wish we would have gotten a different one. Did not have the motion sensor on the side, but apparently they no longer made the style with the motion sensor underneath. So that's my only real regret with this. All right, and lastly, we are at our lighting, which I know interior designers like to say to think of your lighting as the jewelry on your room, and I love that, and I feel like it's so true, and lighting really helps you achieve the vibe that you want. And I'm so obsessed with this lighting. I love the seated glass. We have seated glass in the see-through cabinets over there, so it kind of ties together nicely. And then I love brass accents. And it's just such a beautiful shape. I love that these like little knobs pop out, and I am so thrilled with that. All right, so that sums up the reveal of my non-toxic kitchen, all of the materials we chose and why, and I hope that it helps you guys. Definitely check out the blog post for more information about tips if you're sensitive for how to do remodeling safely, testing materials beforehand, containment strategies, the story on what the heck happened. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. In the next video, I'll be talking about everything I learned, the things that I regret, tips I wish I would have known beforehand. So stay tuned for that. And thanks so much for watching today. If you enjoyed this video or other types of non-toxic lifestyle videos, make sure to subscribe. I'd love to see you here every time.